All right, listeners, check it out. As promised, man, we got Count William on Skype with us tonight, lead singer from Witchcross and Ravensthorn. Count William, how you doing, man?
Oh, I'm doing great. Greetings to all the listeners out there. How's everybody doing? It's great to be here. Thank you.
Thank you, man, for taking the time and calling in tonight and hanging out with us.
Oh, no problem. I'm very happy to be here. Also very happy to have the new Witchcross, Crypt of the Undead out finally after the longest time. It finally came out in March, and it's ready for anybody who's interested. It's a 13-song album. It's about an hour long, maybe a little over an hour, but it's some of the best Witchcross stuff we've ever done, and very proud. It was a long process. Since last summer, we started it at the Dead Room Studios out in Chicago, Illinois, with Chad Elliott and Joe Doer producing, which I used to work with musically years ago in a band called Shadow Lord. But anyway, they decided to produce the album and engineer it, and we went through the process of recording everything in only a couple days. But then they were taking a long time to remaster and mix down and everything just to get the sound right. So we wanted to make sure it was like done really well. So they took their time on it, and everything was done really well. And then Sash Machine Menschel from Germany, he remastered it. And during that time, it ended up being released on Metalizer and Battle Cry Records in Germany. And then
Cool.
It had to, yeah, that's a newest news.
Awesome, man, awesome. Well, take us back to the beginning, man. When did it all start with Witchcross, man?
All right, in the beginning, this is a long story, but I'll try and keep it short so we're not talking all night. Anyway, it goes way back to right out of high school. I was in a band, Nocturnal Doom, where I met Derek Anderson, and me and him got the band started with a different bassist, Gary Oakley, and another drummer, Dan Lamb. And we started with a vision for doing Sabbathy and also Coven-influenced doom metal, with a little bit of a thrash edge to it. And we were doing that until we finally made our first album in 1991, Shades of Despair, which was only released on cassettes. But it was a professionally produced album with a professional cover and everything, just done on cassettes, because the record stores then were, of course, selling a lot of cassettes.
Right.
Anyway, so that went on and for a while until things kept moving along, and we finally ended up with a new bassist and a new drummer, Roger Massey on bass and Gary Pedersoli on drums. And we renamed the band Witchcross after the fact that a lot of our music had to do with witchcraft and demonology and Satanism, and not only that, but all different world topics. But at that point, that was, and it still is a very prominent factor in the lyrics. And so we did the first album in a college studio in '93, and it was a decent album, but it was, we were kids kind of, in my opinion, at that point. So, over the years, we did another album in around, 2008, Innocence and Evil. And then I think the newest album right now is absolutely the best, Crypt of the Undead. And as you know, in between, I was doing Ravensthorn. I did 3 albums with them, so that's why there's such a long gap in years between all the Witchcross albums.
Cool, man, cool. Now you're still with both bands, correct?
Yes, I am. Ravensthorn has had a colorful history of lineup changes and stuff going through between the 3 albums, which are House of the Damned, Hauntings and Possessions, and Horrors of the Black Mass. And the first 2 albums were done with the lineup featuring Greg Vertine on lead guitar, Mario Sanchez bass, and Tony Barr drums. And we did that lineup, and everything was going great. And then around 2005, that was when we did our Germany tour, which featured a different bassist, Jeff Taylor. Anyways, things were going really good, and then, but after that Germany tour, and we came back, things, we were writing new music and working on different things, and at that point, things, were kind of, people had different opinions over which kind of style we were going to do, and, it was just a very weird situation. We started having people coming and going and leaving the band, and, there was a lot of lineup changes until before we finally arrived at the lineup of Jeff West on lead guitar, Bill Hall lead guitar, Scott Trubich bass, and still Tony Barr drums for Horrors of the Black Mass in 2012. But all along, Witchcross had always been, Derek Anderson guitar, Roger Massey bass, and Gary Pedersoli drums have stuck with me since 91. Well, actually, the end of 91, going into 92, they were with me ever since, and it's been, a lot. It's been tough, doing two bands at once, trying to balance everything out and, not to jump into one thing and leave one band behind. But right now, I'd have to say I'm a lot more focused on Witchcross, even though I am working on Ravensthorn, because a surprise thing I would like to announce is that original guitarist Greg Bertine from the first two albums is once again come out of the darkness from years of I don't know where he went. He vanished from my world. I didn't even know how to get a hold of him for years, and then he suddenly popped up when we re-released House of the Damned, and now he's interested in working on some new music with me, so that's going to happen sometime in the future. I'm not sure when, but...
Cool. That's cool, man. So now, it's not, like nowadays, it's not uncommon for a musician to be in multiple bands, but back in the day, man, it was almost like cheating on your spouse or something, right?
Yeah, I'd have to say it all went back to, as a child, my folks were always telling me, don't put everything into one, put all your eggs in one basket or something like that. It kind of stuck with me throughout my life. I don't know how to explain it any other way, but, when I started with Witchcross, I was always serious with them, but I also, had opportunities, which I think when I was younger, I did a little too much of this, is doing the side project thing, because I was always worried, what if this band doesn't make it, or they don't want to do enough shows, or should I have another band? And then I could do shows every weekend and then go on little tours here and come back and somebody else will want to tour. And, I was in my younger 20s. I was like, man, I wanted to do, something every night, go on trips here, trips there, playing all these different things. And I didn't know if one thing was going to make it bigger than the other. But after a while, it does take a toll on you. You find yourself stuck in a couple projects, and then you're like, wearing yourself down to where you can't even sing anymore because you're singing every night of the week or something. But yeah, I didn't want to. We built up Witchcross and we built up Ravensthorn to a point where, I don't want to leave either one in the dust. But Witchcross is my number one right now. But I still want to do some more with Ravensthorn in the future, coming up very shortly too. So I'm not going to turn my back on either one. I think I've built them both. It's almost like with King Diamond and Merciful Fate. He still wants to. He has fans for both bands. They are similar, but he doesn't want to stop doing either one. It's kind of the same with me.
Cool, man.
Or Ozzy
cool.
with him and Black Sabbath.
Yeah. Sweet, man. So now, tell us about the songwriting, man. Would you say it's a one-person effort? Is it a group effort? How do you guys go about writing your tunes?
It's very different. Usually, there's two different processes. Usually, when the song, it's mostly always been me and whoever's playing guitar is always the ones writing the songs. In Ravensthorn, Greg or whoever was, if it was Jeff or I'll use Greg for instance because he's done more of the songwriting. In the first albums that a lot of people are more familiar with, but like if he would write some riffs, he would put them all on a CD or something and just hand it to me, and I'd just listen to it and write the lyrics down. I'd make up some kind of vocal, in my bedroom. I would listen to it on my stereo, and I'd just start singing along with it, making up stuff as I go along, and then I'll start getting ideas, writing a little poetry pieces or parts of lyrics and fit it into the notes. I think sometimes I come up with the vocal notes of how I'm going to sing a line before I actually come up with the lyrics, which is kind of weird sometimes. But when I write a song myself, which on the new Witchcross, there's at least 6 songs where I wrote the music and the words. But I also play guitar myself, but not as much anymore these days. But when I am writing songs, I'll get the guitar back out and start jamming out. And, I lay down riffs on an old cassette Tascam, like way back in the day, and I just keep on the riffs, on an old tape, and then later I'll just go in the bathroom or something and record the vocals. And then, I'll transfer that to a CD or something, or else just bring that to practice and plug it through the PA system and play it to the guys, and then, they'll take it home and learn it. Or when Derek writes guitar stuff, he'll just come up with stuff and bring it to practice. And then for some reason, it's like our bassist Roger and our drummer Gary, when Derek makes up something on the spot, it seems like they pick it up instantly. And then I just start making stuff up, and we record some of our songs like live at practice and just use that as like a working point. And then later we'll pull out that, CD or that tape of a live improv song, and then we'll try and do it again and make it better. And then we'll break up changes and make up all kinds of ideas. And then I'll take it home and write down the real words. And then I'll bring the lyrics with me and, start rehearsing with the real words, and we'll make other little changes. Usually before we get to the recording studio, we've already been doing the song for like a half a year, and we have it like refined down to a science before we even walk into a recording studio.
Cool, man, cool. So, just going back there a little, recording the vocals in the bathroom, man, there's nothing like bathroom acoustics. I hear a lot of guys say they record their vocals in the bathroom. You there, man? Let's see if we can get the count back here. You gotta love a Skype, man.
Okay, I'm here.
All right, man. We lost you there for a second.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, I was just saying, in the songwriting process, using the simple tools, sometimes just a little room, a setting can give you a vibe, while you're working on a brand new song. Once you get in the studio, sometimes it's intimidating, when you're in front of all this professional, fancy equipment and everything. It's good to have that down, know that song like the back of your hand before you even walk in there. So when I'm just making up something at home, or when the guys are working on stuff, we just use it, the simplest tools of recording stuff, a lot of old equipment and stuff.
Cool, man, cool. Well, I was saying before, you were saying about recording vocals in the bathroom. And I
just do that only when I'm, like when I'm writing a song. Once the riffs are laid down on the mini studio, I'll just go in the bathroom sometimes. I'll write the lyrics out, in my bedroom or something. And sometimes I haven't done this in a while, but I used to just bring a microphone and hook it up and bring the Tascam into the bathroom and just, lay down a practice vocal.
Yeah.
And that way I could bring it and show the guys at the practice, and then we'll start doing it the real way live, as we figure it out as a band.
But there's just something about the acoustics in a bathroom, man. I don't know if it's the tile.
There's something about it. It's crazy. I don't know. It goes back to, just stuff that worked, I think it goes back to, when I was a teenager and I used to practice stuff when I was coming up with my song ideas, and those were things that worked. And like sometimes when I'm writing a song now, I'll still do it the same way I did when I was a teenager. In my mind, I feel like I still am, but you get older and you don't even think about how old you are, but you just keep on going.
Yeah, man, I hear you, dude. Hey, man, the first song I want to play tonight, Curse of the Werewolf. What can you tell us about the tune?
The original ideas for that song we started doing years ago, and then we never really refined it to the way it is now. But I've always had this desire to take like classical horror ideas, like with vampires and werewolves, and bring it into like a darker, more savage setting. Because some of those creatures from way back in the past, from Hammer horror and all those old classic movies, over the years they've lost, their scariness to some people, because they've been bastardized through all these crappy movies that make them watered down and all that. But to me, I like to take those characters and bring them back to the most evil that they could possibly be, and mix them with occult stories and everything, and create like my own horror stories with some of the classic characters, and then put it to music, because we've had some of the riff ideas for that have bounced around for years, but we finally decided that's such a heavy song. We decided to try, and we have a couple soft ones on the new album, but we decided, they fit into the story, but we wanted to keep a lot of really heavy stuff onto this album. And to me, this is one of our heaviest Witchcross songs, and I really love it. So,
all right, man. Check it out, listeners. Witchcross with the Curse of the Werewolf. We'll be right back with Count William. All right, gang, we're back with Count William. Man, how you doing, brother?
I'm doing great. Welcome and greetings to everyone out there again. It's great to be here and to talk about the history of the Witchcross and Ravensthorn with you, man. I'm very happy to be on here.
Awesome, man. So now, how about a little bit about yourself, man? When did you first get involved in music, brother? And when did you know that this is what you wanted to do?
To tell you the truth, it began really early with me, not as a performer, but just falling in love with heavy metal. I'd say about 8 years old, I started listening to Kiss and Black Sabbath and Coven and everything. Just like, I had a lot of relatives that, actually it had a lot to do with my Uncle Dave. When I used to go to my grandma's house, and his bedroom was upstairs. He's about 12 years older than me, so I'd go up and sneak up into his room, and I was like seeing all his album covers laying around, and it was like fascinating to me. And then he'd be like, "Oh, you want to check this out?" And he'd put on like some old Deep Purple or something, and the next thing you know, I was like crazy about it. And then he was giving me albums for Christmas, and everybody. Next thing you know, I started getting into, going to record stores. But as a performer wise, I'd say around 13 or 14, I got a guitar. I started playing guitar first. Actually, I didn't even think I was going to become a singer. But then, I started meeting other guitar players and stuff like that, and I realized that, a lot of them I thought were way better than I was, but they liked my song ideas. But then, I would always like sing some words to them or something. They're like, "Wow, man, you sound way better at singing." And then I'd show them my lyrics, and then they're like, "You should just sing and write lyrics." So I just kept on doing that, and I would always rehearse with albums. Mostly I was just like playing. I had a huge collection then, just like I do now, and I'd always rehearse with Ozzy albums and Coven albums and Kiss albums, and I'd be always constantly singing. Then the next thing you know, when I was about 16 or 17, I started getting a few local guys together, and we put together like the very early version of Nocturnal Doom, which over the years slowly led into Witchcross.
Cool, man, cool. So now you're touching on some old school bands there. Who would you say are your personal musical influences?
My biggest influences are Black Sabbath, Coven, Kiss, and I can't even name all of them, but King Diamond definitely and Merciful Fate are huge with me. And then I was into so many bands, I can't even name like all my top favorites, but I was into a lot of early like Surith Ungol, and I was into everything that like a lot of the really early dark thrash bands and death bands I was into, but I always wanted to do doom metal. I was really into sticking to my roots with doom, because there were so many speed metal bands that I love. Speed metal and thrash and all that, like Venom and everything is one of my favorites. And I also love Deicide and Morbid Angel and all that stuff. But a lot of my buddies were all in bands that were playing that more like that kind of stuff, and I wanted to stick with like a really vintage sounding, really dark vintage sounding style that kind of harkens back to the early 70s.
Cool.
That's what I always wanted to stick to, and a lot of people were always veering away, let's move on, let's do something else, and I always had to kind of fight to keep my direction moving in that way, and also involving, a horror like theatrical stage show. A lot of people wanted me to get rid of that over the years. I can't explain why, because a lot of people that like to come see us, they love to, a lot of our fans and stuff, they're like, "Oh, I can't wait for you to do this and that tonight, or you're going to, break out some blood or do the coffin or anything like that," or, but a lot of the band members I had over the years wanted me to get rid of it and just be more like Anthrax or something, but I'm like, I can't do that. So that would explain like some of the reason why some people left, or I don't know, but I had fun with everybody I've performed with over the years, and I still have really good memories of everyone that's ever been involved in the band. But right now, just working with Derek and Gary and Roger in Witchcross is really being the most enjoyable thing I've ever done since we put this new album out. I'm really the most proud of it, of anything I've ever done, I think.
Cool, man. Cool. Very cool. So, dude, it sounds like you're busy as hell with both bands. So when you're not writing, rehearsing, playing out, dude, what do you do for a day off, man? What do you enjoy doing?
I'd say probably, it doesn't sound like it's something it would be in character, but no, I try to get out and do a lot of stuff in the woods, or I'd go for long distance bike rides and stuff like that, and go to the gym and work out a little bit. But I can't say I don't party. I'm the biggest party animal. But lately I've been kind of calming down on that. Like, I still drink, occasionally, but I'll get hammered some nights. But then I go long times without doing it too. I think lately I've been getting a lot more into the fitness thing. Getting out there, trying to, get as much of the great outdoors and everything, and also try and get some more exercise in there and get out there and, ride bikes and do long distance hikes in the woods. I love the woods, which that translates into our music too, because a lot of the scenes of the band, the photographs, the old classic stuff is like in the woods and everything, which even when I'm not, involved or doing something related to the music, I still like to be out in the woods. That gives me a lot of inspiration for my lyrics and stuff too. Just when I get out there, I start dreaming and imagining stuff, that's not even there, and it gives me ideas.
Cool. That's cool, man. That's really cool. So, what would you say is your most memorable moment so far, man?
Well, I can't lie that one of the biggest moments, would always go back to the 2005 Ravensthorn trip to Germany, which, that's one of the moments I'd have to say, because that stage show, we did 2 shows out there. We did one that was like an opening night show that was indoors, and I'd say there was, maybe, I don't know, close to 1,000 people, and then the next one was even bigger than that, and it was outdoors. But it was the 2 biggest audiences I've ever played for. But I can't just say that that's the best thing. It was one of the best things ever, the long trip and everything. I wish I could have stayed there longer. And I think one of the things that's so cool about it, too, is we made contacts, and I personally made contacts with people out there that it seems like they've helped me the rest of my life with music. People that I don't even think that remembered me from out there are calling me, and like, it took a long time, but, like the guys, which I'd like to mention their names, Bernard Kreitmeyer, Andy Priestig, and Sash Machine Menschel, and they're from Battle Cry, Metalizer, and Mighty Monster Records. These guys, they were a lot younger when they met me in Germany. They must have been really young, but somehow they remembered me from then, and it took them a long time, but they contacted me about a little over a year ago about re-releasing a Ravensthorn album, which this is a little off the subject, but I'm just saying the great thing about being out in Germany and doing that huge thing is, having people remember you and help you later on with getting a record deal or something like that. But
Right.
But also, there's been a lot of huge things that I love with the Witchcross thing. I mean, one of our biggest things that I can ever remember that I thought was a great show was this. We did a Freedom Run Biker Fest like several years ago, and there was like over 1,000 people there, and you don't usually get an audience that big for a metal event, an underground metal event.
Right.
In America. I mean, if you're just like an underground band, which we've always kind of, been, pigeonholed down into that underground thing, which I love it, but at the same time, you kind of want to break out of it and have a bigger audience. But that was a huge audience, and they let us play, a huge show, and it was just insane. They treated us like we were rock stars at that place, and it was like a whole thing to raise money for veterans and stuff like that. It was a biker fest, but it was just massive. There was nobody hurt or anything that day. It was just a big event. You'd think having 1,000 bikers drinking and people going crazy, somebody would get hurt, but nobody did. So that was kind of a cool night.
Sweet. That's really cool, man. That's really cool. So, dude, let's take it the other way, man. Do you have any Spinal Tap moments you'd like to share with us?
Oh, man. Speaking of which, that is one of my favorite movies, and there's a lot of funny stuff that goes on. But I'll have to bring up one thing that never leaves my memory that is one of the most hilarious things that's ever happened, which was in the early days of Nocturnal Doom. I was really serious like I am now, trying to, and I go on stage, being all ghoulish and atmospheric and everything. Anyways, we were playing at this gigantic roller rink called the Rink in Maryville, Indiana, which when we were younger, that was like the best place to play since you couldn't get into bars when you're like 17 or 18. So we're doing this big show, and we had a decent audience and everything. I was kind of nervous. I was still like about 17. So I'm like really nervous, and I'm in my black gown and everything, like a black cloak, and I got the makeup on. I'm all dressed all scary and everything, ready to go on stage. And they got all the lights out and the fog going, everything. And they didn't tell me you have to go up this little back ramp behind the stage, and then it comes through this little passageway and you come out onto the stage. Anyway, so I'm going through that little passage in the dark, and I freaking, they didn't tell me you had to duck at this one point. There's like a board that comes down. So I nailed my head on this board and almost knocked myself out. Then the band starts playing, and I come on stage, and my head's like pounding. I got like a big cut on my head. I just went ahead and jammed. I pretended it was part of the show, but it was like really, it was killing me. I almost knocked myself out. It was horrible.
Oh, that's great, man. Oh shit, dude. The next song I want to play is from Ravensthorn, "Dark Night of Invocation." Dude,
this song, I'd like to mention one thing. This is written by a good friend of mine, Bill Hall, who I haven't heard from in a little while. But anyway, he was in and out of the band a lot of times throughout the years as the lineup changed. But when we reissued the new House of the Damned, he had a lot of involvement, behind the scenes with helping get the album cover together and all different stuff. And he wrote this song. He was in the lineup back when we did Horrors of the Black Mass. And this was a song that he had bouncing around for a while. And we started playing this for a little while, but anyway, he remastered it and did all that, and then we decided it was so good that we decided to go ahead and put it on as an extra track on the new bonus track for the new House of the Damned reissue, which is still out there. By the way, if anybody's looking for any of this stuff, the new Witchcross Crypt of the Undead album or the Ravensthorn House of the Damned album, they're on my eBay at Count Bloodwind on eBay. So you could also find it right on my Facebook. I have the link on there for my eBay. Just look for the album cover pictures, scroll down, and then click on there if you want to get it. It's really easy to do. So
cool, man.
Anyway, this is Dark Night of Invocation.
All right, listeners, check it out. We'll be right back with Count William.
Patrolling the black
All right, gang, we're back with Count William. Dude, how you doing?
I'm doing great. How you doing? Welcome
awesome.
to everybody who just joined in, or to the people who've been here all night. It's a pleasure to be telling you the history of the band and going through all the stuff that's happening now, including we have 2 gigs coming up. I wanted to mention, if you're in the Chicago or the northern Indiana area, Witchcross is playing with Psychomancer, Godless America, Blood Throne, and Purge, June 27th at the Livewire Lounge in Chicago. And July 18th, we're playing with Hellgrind at Sopranos in Griffith, Indiana. So those are both 2 shows coming up that are wild. The weird thing is that the 2 shows, the Psychomancer show, and then the other show, Hellgrind, they both, a long time ago, a lot of the members of Hellgrind were in the singer and the guitarist were in Psychomancer, but now there's like 2 bands, one's Hellgrind and the other Psychomancer. But it's funny because we have these 2 shows popped up, and we didn't plan it that way, but it ended up where, one half of the band is at one show and the other's at the other. But both of them are good bands now. They both went kind of like the way Cannibal Corpse and 6 Feet Under did, but both bands are good, but they just kept going. So
cool, man. So now, dude, would you say Witchcross has evolved or grown since the early days, man? I mean,
I think it's grown hugely because a lot of it has to do with us being involved in other projects too. I think by me being in Ravensthorn, and also with Derek doing like The Devil Within, and he had a solo project called The Devil Within. It was more of a bluesy kind of like hard rock thing. It wasn't, he had one album that they did, but anyway, we did our own little side projects, and then we've, but we all agreed kind of that when we started working on the Crypt of the Undead album, that we wanted to make an album that was like, had a really good production, sound quality, and also, some of our heaviest, most darkest songs, kind of like a really, really dark storyline that kind of runs through the whole thing. And also we kind of wanted to have that Ravensthorn influence slightly in there, just like a heaviness, because there was a certain heaviness that I went to with the Ravensthorn guys that was a little bit more thrash influenced. And then when I came back to making a new serious Witchcross album, I wanted to bring an album out that still had that crunch and that power, like that thrash influence, but still taking the doom metal sound from the early 70s and kind of combining that together into like a power metal doom like mixture. And also still keep the horror influence, like the King Diamond influence in there with the storyline kind of thing and stuff like that. But this storyline is completely different than anything from King Diamond and whatever think of. But it's a little bit more like traditional horror. But
cool, man, cool. So now, what advice would you have for the young guys just starting out, man?
All I can say is it's a lot different than it was then, but it's never been easy, and it never will be. But I'd say by the fact that the internet, is out there, it's a good tool, to get yourself out there. But to me, I think my number one advice is spend as much time as you can working on your songs, and you're practicing your instrument and working on your songs. Make sure you have the best songs you could possibly have before you start hyping yourself, too much, or it's good to try and write like at least 6 or 7 good songs, a halfway long of an album, some kind of a full-length release. Get yourself together with at least an album quality, album-length demo or something, and get that going before you get out there and do too much, hyping or anything, because without the recording, it's really, you could play all you want and do as many shows as you want, but if you don't have an album to come back to, it's like, it's just, I don't know, it's not really a good thing.
Right,
I think it's better to have a release, because if anything happens to anybody, you could always have that album. It's going to last forever. To me, that's why right now I'm trying to, I've come to a point in my life where I'm just trying to get as many, trying to write as many albums and keep recording as much as possible. We still like to play out and do as many things as possible. If a tour comes along, I would love to do it. But at the same time, we're already working on get stuff together to get ready for the end of this year. We're going to be recording another album. So I'm not going to wait like 2 or 3 years in between albums anymore like I used to when I was younger. You think you got all the time in the world, but right now I don't want to let more than a year go by without doing another new album. So we're working on the next Witchcross album already right now. And I'm also doing a little songwriting, in case, if I'm getting stuff together with Greg, with Verthine, in case if we do any more new Ravensthorn stuff, which I have a feeling we might do in the future, I'd like to at least do another album, at least with him, because he's a good songwriter. I don't know. I've talked about using Jeff Taylor on bass, but I don't know what's going to happen with that. It's just an open doorway. Then I'm leaving it open, and we're working on some song ideas. But right now, I'm just 100% with Witchcross, and I'm very happy to be working on new songs with Witchcross too. So
cool. So now you were saying you're putting out albums like every year instead of every few years now, and
that's just my plan.
Right.
I haven't done that yet, but I've had the new Ravensthorn re-release was in Christmas time, and then I put the new Witchcross out in March. So now I'm on a roll. I want to keep it that way. I don't want, between the second Ravensthorn album and Horrors of the Black Mass, it was like a 3 or 4 year period there where nothing came out, and I don't ever want to let that happen again.
But like now with the nowadays with the internet, you almost have to do that. Keep your name out there, keep yourself fresh, because if you let 2 years go by, 3 years go by, people might not. They're going to move on. The internet's great, but it seems like the attention span lessens.
You know what the thing was? We were the reason I'd say that 3 or 4 years didn't seem that long. Well, in some ways it did, but we were doing so many gigs. We were playing out. We did 2 trips to New York and New Jersey, and we were playing all over the place. And we were just doing a lot of gigs in the Chicago area. We were playing constantly. We were constantly keeping our name out there. And we were in a different mindset at that point. We thought, which I still like playing out as much as possible, like I said, but we were in a mindset back then. We just wanted to constantly keep playing out. And I don't think we were, taking enough time to get back to songwriting. We were still playing a lot of the old songs from the first 2 albums, which that's not a bad thing. A lot of people want to hear that. But, we were playing like the whole new album, which was at that point in 2012. That was Horrors of the Black Mass. We were playing that album out live almost in its entirety for like about 2 years before we even put it out. And we've done a lot of that in Witchcross with the Crypt of the Undead. We did a lot of the songs live, before we finished the album. Or even, some of them, there's a couple old songs that we did years ago that we put on there too, but they were such good songs that we were just like, why not do an official version? Because we had such a good production going with Chad Elliott and Joe Dewar producing that, we were like, we wanted to do the whole 13-song thing, bring back a couple, like 2 or 3 old ones and then do the 9 new ones. And, it just turned out like a really awesome project.
Cool, man, cool. So now, dude, are you on a label now? Are you looking for one?
I'm always looking to get onto a bigger label, but, right now I'm very happy with what Metalizer and Battle Cry have done for us. They're awesome with their quality, not only in having Sash Menschel, doing all the remastering for their labels. It's like a 2-label thing. Battle Cry and Metalizer used to be 2 separate record labels, which they still are, but a lot of times they work together as a team, and it's like Battle Cry, Metalizer. And then Sash Menschel, he used to have his own label called Mighty Monster, and he's like a production studio guy that takes whatever your final mix is from your album that you did in the studio. He'll take that, and he's like a mastermind at like boosting the levels and making everything sound 100% better than you thought it could ever sound. And that's one of the best assets of this. And also the fact that they always do like a nice big like 12 or 13 page full color booklet. They put all your lyrics in there for you. They do like the best job you could ever want. And I'm always thinking, I wish, I could be on a label like Metal Blade or something that'll put you on tour. But, I'm just happy at the same time to have these guys they're great friends out there, and they're great label, doing stuff for us. And they've put out 2 releases, one from Ravensthorn and the new Witchcross. And they're getting it out all over Germany and all over Europe. And then I've got my copies and I'm selling them out here, and it's going great. But, I'm very happy with that. So I'm sticking with them for as long as, time goes by. We're going to probably put their new album that we do at the end of this year or the beginning of next year. We're probably going to put it out with them too. But if, I can always say if something came along like a bigger deal that was willing to put us on the road or something like that, I'm sure we'd go for it. But, a lot of people tell me that's not always as good as it's cracked out to be either. So I'm just, right now I love Metalizer and Battle Cry, so that's working for us. And I'm very happy with what those guys have done.
Cool, man, cool. So now what would you say is the ultimate goal for Witchcross, man?
Just to stay safe and keep playing out and, keep making albums and having a great time, putting on dark theatrical horror shows and, doing the best doom metal music we can do and having a great time. I mean, I could say my goal is to be famous, but, there's a lot of fame out there, but I'm not rich or anything, but it's probably better that I'm not, because people hear about all these people that get rich. They end up either drinking themselves to death or something, it's like not even worth it. But I don't know. I just want to have a good time and entertain as many people as my biggest goal is probably to play to like a huge, like massive audience. That's like my biggest goal, to play for bigger crowds all the time. It's not always about the money or the fame, but a little bit of the fame is always, that's always awesome.
Cool, man. So now you touched on upcoming shows a little earlier. You want to recap that, man?
Yeah, coming up June 27th, Witchcross is playing live downtown Chicago, the Live Wire Lounge, with Psychomancer, Godless America, Blood Throne, and Purge. And then in July 18th, we're playing with Hellgrind at Sopranos in Griffith, Indiana. So that's going to be 2 killer shows.
Cool, man, cool. So now, where can the listeners find Witchcross and Ravensthorn, man?
The best place is, like I said, my eBay, which if you're a Facebook friend with me, I am on William Janish at Facebook, and that's WILLIAMJANNUSCH, William Janish on Facebook. And once you go on my Facebook site, you can find the link to my Count Bloodwind eBay anywhere on there, or else you could just go to eBay and type in Count Bloodwind, and brings you to my page, which I have all the Witchcross and Ravensthorn. The 2 most recent releases are for sale on there. I'd like to put all the old releases again on there too, which I'm going to do that one of these days, but it's hard to keep everything in stock all the time. But right now I've got tons of the new Witchcross, and that's the best thing I'm really promoting the most. So
cool.
But
cool.
Anyway, yeah, just go to eBay, Count Bloodwind, or else you could just you could always scan eBay and type in one word Witchcross and then Crypt of the Undead. That's the new album title.
Sweet, man. Well, now that's the song I want to close out with right now is Crypt of the Undead, man. What can you tell us about
the tune? Intro. Crypt of the Undead is the intro, and then it goes into Restless Spirits, but the version you have is all one song. That was like the early release single where we put it all on there as one track, which that's a killer thing. That's like the opening intro of the album where you hear it has like the creepy sound effects. It takes you deep into the story, which the story is, if you got a minute, I'd like to
for it, man.
This is like the opening intro that's in the inside of the album cover. It says, "Enter the forest on a darkened stagecoach into nocturnal horror. Proceed through the graveyard gates into thy ancient house, where evil spirits cry and the ghosts of those long departed climb the spiral staircase and stalk the blood-soaked corridors, whispering their black magical chants, possessing the living who would dare to walk through these unhallowed and forbidden grounds and listen to their unworldly cries of pain. As the werewolf howls at the full moon, 13 witches gather to summon demons from beyond the gates of hell by flickering black candlelight. In the mist-enshrouded forest cemetery, a lonely count returns to the crypt of the witch, his true love, and joins her among the graves in a world of undead existence. After performing a black magic ritual and ultimately being transformed by her bite into a vampire by moonlight, deceased mariners' spirits haunt the shores as the waves roll in, carrying pieces of their broken ship inland, their only quest to stop the evil now shattered in the sea's rocky mire, and their souls damned forever by spectral slavery on the castle grounds. Thunder and lightning give way to the malevolent storm from which there is no escape except to die and find yourself trapped in this nightmare forevermore, or be lost in its intoxicating undeath and romance. Hail Satan.
Awesome. Very cool. Very cool. Man.
That's kind of what this sound, when you hear the sound effects kick in at the beginning of the album, everything I was reading is like performed in like sound effects, and then it takes you straight into the song.
Sweet.
So are we gonna come back on after the song?
No, we're gonna wrap it up here, brother.
Okay, cool. Well, I just want to tell everybody out there and you, thank you for tuning in, and I've had a great time being on here, and I hope you always continue to check us out, and also I hope you enjoy the new album if you decide to purchase it or pick it up, and just give it a listen right now, and thanks for having us on. And watch out for us in the mist-shrouded graveyards of the night.
Awesome.
I'll be out under the full moon looking for you.
Brother, thank you, man. It's been an honor. It's been a pleasure. It's been a hell of a night, man. Thank you for
I had a blast. Thank you for having me on, man.
Hang on one second, man. Listeners, check this out. We got some Witchcross right now for you. Crypt of the Undead and Restless. We'll be right back.